Hey, what's up, guys? Another fight book classic from Paladin Press, the late great Paladin Press. Bouncer's Guide to Barroom Brawling, dealing with the sucker puncher, the street fighter. Hey, I'm a street fighter. An ambusher by Peyton Quinn. This is still a classic book. This is probably one of the first books to try to get past the martial arts mythologies and get into the realism of actual real fighting. Right? Once again, just like Jeff Thompson was doing in England around the same time, these men were both bouncers, okay, guys in a place where a lot of alcohol and drugs occurred and a lot of violence. And so you're dealing with that perspective, not so much. You can say it's self-defense, but James LaFont sort of got more into that for the more common man who was dealing with predatory crime. A lot of this stuff sort of is still dick measuring contests between assholes, which you had a lot of back then. And let's be honest, I'll be honest too, is growing up. Men back then were a lot more violent and tougher. You have violence today, it's more concentrated. The guys are not as tough as they were back in the 80s or the 70s. I mean, I can tell you that straight up from teenagers to now. I'm just saying that when I was a kid, like a teenager or a 20-year-old also would have no compunction. A stranger, if you pissed him off, he would beat you up. Strange adults would grab you and beat the shit out of you, not worrying about getting sued or worrying about other things like that. It was just a different time for you whippersnappers today. No one was scared of that stuff, getting sued or even getting arrested for that. So it was a healthier society in some ways. But then again, the crime rate was ridiculous back then as well. Right? Enough of that. It's just basically he nailed that. What, as a regular person, what you're going to be dealing with is an ambush. Someone's going to try to sucker punch you. They might talk to you beforehand. Jeff Thompson covered that a lot, but just as much it would come out of nowhere. Right? The big thing too is always this is one of the biggest things, man. Look at where a guy's hands are, man. Forget his yap in his mouth or his eyes. Where are his hands, dude? But talks about the sucker puncher, the guy hit you is pretty much just gonna hit you when you're not ready with the right hand. Ironically, this is actually the strategy you should follow in this book, not the one he actually teaches. I know that sounds, who are you? But I'm just saying, later on, most of the self-defense that would come out would sort of adopt the preemptive hit him first strategy when he's not ready, rather than what he does in the book. But this was like him still feeling his way out. Right? And the observations are real, not only on the reality of fighting, sloppy affairs, most are decided by punches to the head. People are going to grab each other. Even Floyd Mayweather, even you could clinch Floyd Mayweather and stop him from beating the shit out of you for a second or two before he resumed when you were broken up. And then the kicking is usually not useful, although there's some tall guys that can fucking kill you with a kick. But regardless, so what I like is, again too, is that Paladin gave a lot of freedom to its writers. So now I'm trying to get to the pictures, the photos here, right? Black and white photos. There's Peyton. He looks kind of like a Teddy Roosevelt type. And he essentially offered the ideas of in the martial arts that he's done. Mainly he was a karate guy, but he boxed, And the idea of how to deal with being, the different, especially the toolbox. You're not wearing gloves. The emphasis of breaking your hands on a guy's head. Now, of course, Jeff Thompson felt different. If you're preemptively hitting a guy, you could hit a guy with a closed fist and not hurt your hands. Because you will pop him in the jaw, and the jaw would give, the head would turn. But in the chaos of battle, Quinn was more an exponent of the open hand karate type strikes, which Jeff Thompson also was. He was also for that too. He was a karate man also, I think. The vertical fist, the Wing Chun, right? The back fist. Right? He had the different jaws. the palm strike. Oh, karate. But it's just cool, like having like these, the photos done by his friends. It's very much DIY, essentially. The video cassette. I have the video cassette of this book by Paladin Press. It's literally shot on a VHS camera. I think with a remote control or something. A great, like I said, a relic of time. There's a lot of still good info in this. I'm not saying this is archaic and not useful now, but and the heavy bag, yeah, you hit something, you gotta know what it is to hit. You gotta hit hard, regardless. And you got to shoot the karate chop. But once you get past that, you get into other things here. The defense is, they're still reacting to people, right? He talks about facing. He talks about essentially like the inside, outside. That's a big thing. You have that in boxing, right? You want to be outside the guy's lead foot, be out of his wheelhouse. He has one hand on your, you have two on his one hand, right? But like I said, Peyton was just starting out with this. He had actually made some of this work, like with his blocking and hitting. Of course, a lot of this is counter punching. Okay, I think you'd be better off more with MMA boxing things for this and being preemptive rather than what's done here. But like I said, he was trying to show principles. Right? Also, what's interesting too is Peyton also did a lot of judo. So you got the grappling here, right? The grappling arts. And judo still. Right? Judo still. I mean, the old judo guys were no joke. Right? Wrestling would serve you as well. There's a lot of throws that are common to both. But you got to be able to grapple. And the clinching, the upright grappling, the clinching is where your boxing meets your stuff. A lot of this is a misnomer as well. Okay, the reality too is, despite all these things here, okay, and this is from a more violent time statistically. Okay, it's more concentrated now. It's not as spread out throughout American society, but to be honest, you're not going to want to do a lot of, punching is going to be a counter, to when something goes wrong. Wrestling is similar. You're not going to be I don't know how to say this without being irresponsible. You're not going to want to be fighting with your hands too much, particularly now and in the future, because you're not going to be fighting one jerk off. Okay, we're going back to medieval days. Okay? But it's still a great book, a lot of fun, and what else is in here? I thought it was cool, and of course the infamous thing with the video. There was another video he did with the knife, which I lost, where the letting technology do some of the work. And I remember they were doing, I think it was the knife video, where his buddy with the mustache at the end finally talks, and he goes, when dealing with weapons, I'd rather do this. And they both pull out handguns and shoot them at the shoot them sort of all like to the side of the camera. It's a very effective thing. These guys are all about guns, So, and of course, dealing with the crowds, dealing with this stuff. Like I said, I think my buddy James' stuff is a little more applicable today than even Peyton's or Jeff Thompson's things, just because of the nature of it, the way things are breaking down. Like I said, you shouldn't be fighting, and if you get to the thing, you definitely don't want to be just doing it with your hands. But just like my man Icy Mike, check out Hard to Hurt. That's a great channel. You gotta be able to fight. You gotta be able to fight unarmed. To then be able to use something, not the other way around. So you gotta know how to wrestle, or at least box a little bit, and then you add to that with technology. He makes a good point. A lot of the gun guys are these big fat dudes that very good, right? They're not worth a damn once they get grabbed, and that's pretty bad. So, but anyway, I'm trying to think anything else I can add to this. Nah, nah, nah. A pretty good classic book. Peyton Quinn did a lot of good work in this realm of self defense, whatever you want to call this. So, I don't think he gets enough credit. By the way, he doesn't get mentioned much. So, I think he also like bunch of him and James later. I think they pissed off of the whole idea of it was a big money making thing with the martial arts. So, and even though to be frank, even though the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff works, it is workable. It does work. They also want to keep their money, and they don't want to go to the reality of it, which is violence is antisocial. This is very martial arts, particularly, is very social, very hierarchical. It's sort of a shadow of another time, and whereas the other alternative is sort of a sports mentality, but violence is antisocial, so, and the law enforcement angle is going to be a problem because guess who the law enforcement's aiming at? They're not aiming at the guys doing this in the end. It's really they're aiming at you. So anyway, I don't mean to get off on that tangent, but classic book, Bouncer's Guide to Barroom Brawling. That's what I wanted to cover. The fight. This is one of the best fight stories. One of my favorite fight stories. When he and his buddy were drinking in a bar in Texas, and the bar. Every hotel had a bar back in the day. And so they were kind of drunk. They go outside, and three cowboy types, ambushed them. Apparently, they had a problem with the guy's buddy was a brother, and they attacked him. This is probably in the 70s or the early 80s. They knocked his friend out right away with a stick. Peyton grabs the guy who hit him, not knowing there's two other guys. Okay, they knock him down. He goes to the ground with the one guy with the stick. His glasses get knocked off, so now it's dark. He's drunk and he can't see. He's with one guy on the ground, and the two guys who are up are kicking and punching him. Essentially, Peyton adrenaline hits. Peyton feels the guy's jeans, grabs his balls, twists and headbutts the guy on the ground because he doesn't need to see the guy on the ground. He can feel where he's at. He headbutts the dude. Then he gets up and he's getting punched by both guys. The adrenaline was up to the max. He grabs one guy because he's getting hit by by both. He grabs the closest dude with one hand and basically hits the guy with full power shots to the head and to the body, doing ki-eyes, actually doing the karate right? But on steroids, on max adrenaline. The guy falls. The guy drops from the repeated punches. The other guy, meanwhile, is still hitting him from behind. He turns and grabs him. He can't see that good, but he feels it. He does the same to this guy. Okay? I think the last guy, he grabbed him against the car and started smashing his head against the car. Right? It was interesting. And then he got up, he got his friend and took him to the hospital. Well, one of the guys both guys had multiple broken ribs. The one dude, he had a collapsed lung. He fucked these guys up pretty good. The guy on the ground actually got off the best. So that was an interesting fight. That was a do or die fight where the guy couldn't even see, and he just tactile with his hands, and just going to the max. And the irony of the story is that then he got arrested for that, and almost was facing prison time for that, even though he defended himself and his friend. He luckily a friend of his was a DA. And they managed to smooth that out. If he had been a regular guy and didn't know that, that wouldn't have happened. So stay out of fights. Stay out of fights. There's no way out. Hit hard.